had cliques. There were guys we hung with, guys you could trust. Um, you had to earn, there was a rite of passage into that group. And a lot of the really heavy dopers, they had their little group and they were generally not viewed with a whole lot of trust. But it happened, but it wasn't like what it's been represented to be. The next one, and this is one that really gripes me, as much as the thing about losing the Vietnam War, and that's atrocities. The 11th Cav, the Black Horse, my unit, was, unbeknownst to me then, was a famous unit. We were armored reconnaissance and assault, but it was a cavalry unit, so you think of horses. They replaced the horses with light vehicles. As a matter of fact, Judy, would you start passing those two photos, the Sheridan tank and the ACAV around? This is what we were in. We were a tough unit. We were the big hammer. When someone got in trouble because of our mobility and firepower, we would just go blasting there to bail out a Marine unit or an infantry unit or whatever. And we also had the job of, and I didn't realize until I got there, reconnaissance and assault isn't just going out looking for information and then whacking somebody that needs whacked. We would literally go out and go down a certain trail and then return on that same trail. You never do that. Since wars have been fought, if you go to an objective, your return route is a different route, because to come back the same route you took is to invite to be ambushed. But I started noticing us doing this. And I was asking my platoon leader, I said, what's going on, LT? And he goes, we're trying to tempt them to attack us.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought the idea here was to live and get home, and raise meet a woman and have children and all that, And then all of a sudden you realize our problem was they would not stand up and fight us, because every time they did, this goes back to us winning that war. Every major conflict we were in with the North Vietnamese, we won. Now some of it is because we had air superiority, artillery, flying death-spewing machines, I understand that. But also, we fought hard.
Mm-hmm.
And 11th Cav had a reputation of being hard-hitting and the wrong people to mess with. In spite of that, the dozens of prisoners of war I witnessed and the two I personally handled myself, I never once saw anything approaching atrocity.
How did the men feel about each other? What was the rapport like?
How did you feel about each other?
The other men in the unit, how was the rapport between them?
The camaraderie.
Yeah.
Here's where I can get in trouble. When we were getting hit a lot, race relations, I'm probably going in a different direction than you're thinking, but race relations were great. When a couple of weeks would go by when things, you could start relaxing again, then I started noticing racial frictions. But it was more than that. We were coming from all parts of the country. I was telling somebody here the other day, I made reference to a soda drink as a pop.
From the Midwest.
What in the
That's
world's
what we
a
call it.
pop? Soda.
Yeah.
Why do you call it pop? You never heard. So there's all this adjusting to different jargon and personalities and all that stuff. We got along great.
Right.
There was a brotherhood, and this is one that, there's several good videos out there about why combat veterans miss combat. Excuse me, what did you say?
Yeah.
You miss combat? We do. And it's not just the adrenaline rush. There's that fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, there's a specialness about those guys that they're still alive. I would, because I did then, literally place my life in their hands. I'd place my wife and children's lives in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
We were tight beyond any friendship that a football player would have with there was, because we were all in the same boat, we could die tomorrow. Extremely tight.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn.
A brotherhood, literally a brotherhood. So, anyhow, atrocities, I'm sorry, that was the other guys. They were the baby killers. Let me give you an example. This is younger, this is, brace yourself. Not our unit, but another unit had been going into villages and vaccinating the children. That's the American soldier, by the way. I don't know, I can't remember how it went, whether they ran out of the, what they were vaccinated, I assume it was for smallpox, or whether it was getting dark, but they had to withdraw because they were an engine country. And they were gonna come back the next morning and finish the inoculation of the children of the village. And they're trying to win the hearts and minds of the people and serve them as well. Before they got back to the village, they noticed smoke, got in there, the village had been burned to the ground. The chief elder had been murdered, his wife and daughters had been raped, and every child that had an inoculation in the shoulder, they'd cut their arm off.
Oh.
Now, if you want to drive a 20-year-old kid to wanting to kill somebody and do it slow, there's the motivation right there, when you actually see that kind of stuff. And yet, in spite of that, the American soldier, I've heard of My Lai, I saw the pictures, but that, when you figure that was 10 years and how many million, 2.5 million soldiers, and you've got a handful of atrocities, that speaks immensely well for the Judeo-Christian foundation this country's built on.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
I need to get off that subject because
Well, thanks for
I have
sharing.
some other personal issues. And then the final one, and this is a little more benign, tanks were not indestructible. I discovered that to my own dismay. I thought when I was going into armor, cool. Dad was in armor, awesome. And it may be kind of safe. They're not. As the picture's going around,
No, that one.
the North Vietnamese had this clever little device called a RPG, rocket propelled grenade launcher, shot a B-40 rocket. The terrorists in Iraq and Iran and all those places, you probably see them, it's a thing they set on their shoulders, got kind of like a snow cone. That device, we had RPG-2s and RPG-7s used against it. An RPG-7 will penetrate 9 inches of homogeneous steel, armor-plated steel. 9 inches, that's that much steel. Our hulls were 1¼ inches of aluminum.
Oh,
Yeah, and as you see in pictures that come around, this is a model of one right here I built. They were a square aluminum box with no deflection, so the round can't do this. We never rode inside the vehicles with the hatches closed. Now, shared a tank that had a swing, had slope and a little more protection. The driver would tend to button up, but we always rode sitting on top. The driver, which I drove for 8 months, some guys chose to do a little lower. I rode high out of the hatch, shoulders above, because you've got to see what you're doing. And you do not want one of those things coming through the hull of your tank, because it's an explosion that literally comes through. And if you're inside, or if you hit a mine, I have some photos of some Chinese and Russian mines. I've seen our ACAVs, Armored Cavalry Assault Vehicle, the little square boxy things, literally lifted in the air and flipped upside down, killing the entire crew. Tanks were not indestructible, so. Yeah, so, I got to Vietnam, December 6th, 1969. It was a crazy place. They called, when we referred to the United States, when we referred to home, we always referred to it as the world. And it didn't take long to figure out why we were doing that. Being in Vietnam felt like it being on a different planet. The smells, these people are over here talking to each other, and I can't understand a single word they're saying. You know, the colors are weird. The humidity, it was not uncommon to be well into the high 90s and a humidity 80–85%. So you're sweating, but nothing evaporates off of you. It just felt like a foreign planet, not foreign country. Anyhow, got there on December 6, 1969. The first thing they do, they give you more shots, start giving you malaria pills. Then they send us to a 2-week school called Dum Dum School. Now, there's another name for it, and I can't share that with you. Because if you know GIs, you know they don't have the cleanest mouth. There's another name, but most of us called it Dum Dum School, and it was a 2-week schooling designed to teach you what they should have taught us in the United States during basic training and advanced individual training. More about booby traps, how not to get involved in them personally and emotionally involved with them. Cultural things. They really drilled us on being respectful to the South Vietnamese. Matter of fact, I brought a copy of our standing orders. You are in their country, treat them with respect, treat their women with respect. they have the right of way on their roads. They're their roads, not ours. And never touch a Vietnamese on the head, because many of them are Buddhist, and their hair ties in with their ancestry. I think they believe each hair is an ancestor's. So, and if you have to call a Vietnamese to you, even if you've got a gun and you're suspicious of them, you want to question them, you never do this. I think in Africa that's another. You never wave palm up. That's a sign of superiority, and it's the way you call a slave. It's palm down. Lade Manoi, which means come here, honey. Sorry. Lade means come here. Dung Lai, do my dai kok tao means don't move, you son of a, I'll kill you. Little Vietnamese. Yeah, sorry, off track.
Did they teach you those phrases there too?
Yes, yeah, entry things, how to tell a person not to move, how to tell them come here, how not to disrespect them. Then they had weapons classes, but one class I thought really interesting and one I paid special attention to was on flora and fauna. We had this crusty old third tour sergeant giving us the class, and he was telling us about this weird plant that if you touch it, it turned black and immediately pulled its branches away from you. And I thought, okay, what's this guy been smoking? Because, well, it really was there. We walked down and stuff, and the plants would turn black. You look behind you, and there's a black corridor. And you could stand there for a while, 5-10 minutes, and then it would slowly turn green again and then close up behind you. Crazy stuff. A lizard that cussed at you. She went online and listened to it. And they told us this is not a person swearing at you, it's a lizard that sounds like a human saying something really awful. So don't shoot at it in the dark, okay? It's just a lizard. But the real thing that got me was this guy goes, all right, boys, he said, I need to talk about snakes. I thought, oh, man. Clearly his baby boy doesn't like snakes. He said, guys, there's 15 different varieties of snakes in Vietnam. 13 of them are venomous. The other 2 are constrictors. Now, I don't know how accurate that was, because he was kind of, he was third tour Vietnam vet, so how stable could he have been, right? So before you even ask the question, I'll go ahead and answer. Yes, I did. I had 3 encounters with snakes. The first one was a bamboo viper, killed from here to that barrel from me by some local Vietnamese we were protecting who had been being harassed by the Viet Cong. I watched in amazement as they chopped it into little pieces and buried it in separate holes. It was we call them the 2-stepper because it was a neurotoxin that it injected you with. You could actually step more than 2 times before you drop down. It attacked the heart and lungs, and you asphyxiated, or your heart stops. The second one was some kind of python I ran over and cut in half, and the third one was a cobra that I blew its head off. We had a personal encounter, and I didn't like the way he was looking at me. So I shot it. So that was my 3 snake stories. So 2 weeks more up, they sent me out to my troop. Landed where C Troop was at. As a helicopter came in, I saw these light armored vehicles. I won't call them. Some of them, if you call them tanks, it would insult the guys. They were in a circle facing out. It's called a night defensive position, and it was an old fire support base, Firebase Marge, which had a nice dirt berm pushed up with wire around it. So I thought, great, my first night in the field, I'm not going to be out in the jungle. I get to ease into this slow because you're scared. I mean, you're the new guy, and they had already told us new guys were not appreciated. They had a derogatory acronym for us. We'll go into that. So you're in a foreign country with a high mortality rate and a field unit that's known for its aggression with an MOS, a job that includes enticing your enemy to attack you. I'm like, oh man, okay. So they assigned me to vehicle number 14. Any number above 9 is pronounced individually. The number 10 is 10. 14 is 14. So I was assigned to 14. They had a black guy there that really took me under his wing. Great guy from Alabama, Joe Louis Anderson, who I really wish I could find again and thank him for his kindness. So he told me where to stow my stuff, and I made the mistake of asking where the bathroom was. And first off, bathroom is not a military term. I kind of lost my bearings there. And JoJo said, Lonnie, he said, anywhere you want. Vietnam is one great big toilet. So I'm like, wow, okay, thanks JoJo. So I stored my gear. Now I'm all in clean clothes, pale skinned, white as a soda cracker, and everybody else is when you're on the tropics, near the equator, you get a tan, a really nice tan, in a real hurry. So the new guys are obvious because of the clean clothes, and we're not all stained red. Vietnam's, or at least had this red mud in the monsoon season, and there in the dry season it was red dust. So you were red, kind of a terracotta color. So yeah, so I got up on guard that night. Everybody has to do 2.5 hours of guard. So imagine trying to sleep when it's 90 degrees inside your vehicle or out on the ground. It was a 22-hour flight flying there. You haven't slept in a good night's sleep in weeks, and now you got to start pulling guard. So yeah, a fellow by the name of Daryl Chapman got down, woke me up. I wasn't asleep, but thanks anyway, Daryl. I got up, and our vehicles, I have a model there. I'm okay to take this down, if that's right. The tops of our vehicles, the front slope like this, so it's kind of a box, and then your tracks here. 50 caliber machine gun here, 2 M60 machine guns out each side, so we had three machine guns.
You had the size of that ammo though, is that one of those? Which one
Yeah.
is it?
Uh,
He's a big one.
This is a 50 caliber machine gun.
Wow.
The round with the longest longevity in American history. This was World War I round. It was invented to shoot airplanes down. Comes in armor piercing, incendiary, tracer, all kinds of rounds. 650 grain bullet at 3,000 feet per second. The gun, our main gun, the 50 caliber machine gun, weighs 88 pounds. The Ma Deuce is what we call it. Great gun.
Pass that around for you?
Yeah, if you want to pass it around. I actually built a rifle on that, a single shot rifle.
Oh my.
It kicked.
Kick.
It kicked.
Bruises.
This is M60 machine gun ammo. Don't ask me how I got that home. I'll tell you no lies.
Along with a flag, huh?
This is a 308 hunting cartridge, but it uses a full metal jacket bullet. So we had 2 of these, one on each side, and then a 50 cal in front. Except for a Sheridan tank that had a 152 millimeter main gun, plus all the other. So Daryl woke me up. I got up on guard, and I'm scared.